welcome to everyone who is new or joining us today for our topic, which is going to be a REACH Tips webinar on sorting for grant reporting. The basics kind of behind what we're going to be going over today is going to be why would I need to filter, what would I need to filter, how to use these for my specific grants, what do I need to pull out, as well as customizing REACH and filtering for more than one grant funding source. So we know that with a lot of times coalitions, organizations, we need multiple different types of funding, right? And the nice thing about REACH is that we don't want to limit you to only being able to track your data towards one of those funding streams, because that is of no help to you. It doesn't provide a great overall picture of the coalition and the work you're doing. So we wanted to make sure that we are applicable to have the filtering and customization options so you can add multiple different funding streams, sources, whatever it may be, and be able to track and filter the data you need for all of your different funding sources you have. The first topic we're going to be talking today is that why would I need to filter? This is kind of a big thing that a lot of times some of our REACH clients don't quite understand that they can do. Because filtering is not always on top of your mind. Obviously, for a lot of you guys who are doing the REACH data entry, it's more, get it in, we need to get it in type thing. We need to make sure we have all of our data in there to use. But now that we have it in, we need to take a step back and be like, okay, how do we use this? And that's going to be using our filters to pull out the data that we need for our reporting and other types of data sharing opportunities we might have. So that kind of goes into my first slide here. It's kind of why do we need to filter? You might need to filter for different problems and goals. We all know that a lot of our coalitions work on different problems, different goals, different priority areas. You might be working on underage drinking, mental health, prescription drugs, whatever it may be. We want to make sure that you have the tools necessary to filter by those different goals, if need be, for your different funding streams, grant reporting systems. The other step is obviously the big one here, and that's going to be the different funding streams. In REACH, we are customizable, so we do allow you to input as many funding streams as you may have to then be able to filter by once you get your data in. The only thing that you have to do is make sure that you're selecting that funding stream or that funding source that you need to be reporting data to when you are entering your data. Most of you know, or if you don't, feel free to let me know and we can kind of touch base on it. Within the data entry form in REACH, there is a section on there that says who to report to. That is going to be the section I'm talking about. That's where you will have a list of your funding streams, your funding sources, whatever you want to call them, for you to select from the dropdown. The system does allow you to select up to 4. If your group does have more than 4, there is a way we can get around that, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit more today. Once we kind of get into the actual REACH system later on. But it does allow you to select up to 4, which is nice for those of you who do multiple things, need to track it to multiple different funding streams as well. We do allow the tracking there. The next thing could be different grant report formats. As much as we wish it was a standardized system, we know that different grants require different reporting formats. If you are a DFC funded coalition, you have that system to put all your data into. Let's say you have another type of grant, like a block grant, maybe it's a state grant. It could be another federal grant, but we do know that they don't always use the same reporting systems, especially based on what you get the grant for. A lot of times can vary and really alter the look of the report that you have to then submit. So that might be another reason we use filtering, because we need to filter out things that we may not need for one report versus what we may need for another. So that's going to be our options there. The next thing we might need to filter for is going to be needing to separate data by strategy. Most reports that I have seen that our clients have had to fill out, depending on if it's state grant, federal grant, it really all comes down to that strategy area. But a lot of times certain reports tweak their strategies a bit or may have different strategies that they want you to report on. Obviously, if you do use REACH, you know that we use the 7 behavior change strategies, providing information, enhancing skills, modifying, changing policies. But different grants do sometimes have a little bit of different strategies they want you to use or be reporting to. So the nice thing about Reach is we can actually have a customization section and add those in for you if that's something that we need to track specifically for those. Like I said, this might be kind of confusing here at first, but we will get into it here in a second when we actually get into the Reach system. But for now, we're going to get into now how to use the filters. So we are going to jump into the live Reach system now. If you haven't watched our Reach video already on sorting, filtering, exporting data in Reach, we're going to kind of basically just cover a little bit of that today. So you get a kind of a healthy dose of both how to sort, why to sort, and then getting that kind of sorting for actual grant reporting aspect too. So right now I am in the live Reach site here. This is going to be my demo site. I am under a user view, so this will be exactly what you guys see here. And today, like I said, we're going to be going through the filtering and sorting options. For my test site here, I have added a couple additional things in to show you guys what they look like. So you can see how the customization affects your coalition or how we could customize it for you. So first things first, hopefully you all know in order to pull up your filtering kind of row here, we do have to click on Show Filter Options. This is going to allow us to put in different information in each of these sections here, depending on what we want to filter by. Like I said, some of these are going to be drop downs, some of these are going to be fillable pieces. If it is a drop down, all you will have to do is simply select your option from the drop down. If it's a fillable piece, such as the description, this is where it can get a bit tricky. Let's say you are reporting for your grant and you specifically want to pull out meetings. You're going to type the word meetings in here. I'm actually going to leave off the S just so it'll catch meeting or meetings. And then we're going to click on that little filter there, and it's going to pull up our options for us. So since we want to pull up any description with the word meeting in it, we want to click contains. Now on the flip side of that, let's say we didn't want any entries with the word meeting in it, we could click does not contains. Obviously you have the starts with if you know that you always started your descriptions with a specific word for maybe a policy you wanted to track. You could do that as well. You could do ends with if you decided to end it with that specific word, phrase, you know, letter, number, whatever it is. You can also do equal to. It's not going to be very friendly for your words descriptions kind of filtering aspect, but if it was a specific date that you wanted to look for in the date section here, the equal to is going to be a good one there for you. If you are wanting to use the date category and you want to find information between two different dates, you will have to type them in here and make sure to come over and click between. That's going to allow you to only pull up data between those two specific dates that you typed in. Also, when you're typing them in, make sure to only use the slashes. So if it was, as you can see here, 10/1, maybe 2017 through, we're going to do 9/30, 2018. We want to make sure we're still only typing the numbers with slashes. And then between our two dates, we just want to separate those with a space. If you put any other kind of characters in here, the system will basically say error, you know, this is not a correct this is not a correct sorting filter. So basically it will just basically kick you out and say this is not correct, and you'll have to come back in and do it again. So just be really wary about that and making sure to type those in correctly. So like I said, if we go ahead and click contains here, our system's going to pull up any entry with the word meeting in it since I click contains. So that's how we would use the filter option there. The nice thing about this is once we're done using it, we can come up here and click no filter and it'll zero it back out for us and we're back to kind of where we were. The next aspect I wanted to show you is obviously our change view. In Reach, we allow you to filter by any and every piece of information you put into the system. Because what good is it if you can't filter by it, right? So if it was a specific problem goal that you needed to filter by, you can select that one. The big one, like I said, for a lot of people who have multiple different funding streams, can be the strategy, since most, if not all, funding streams usually have some sort of strategy breakdown aspect that they want you to report to them by. This is a great way to do that because we can pull that filter up and it has our 7 strategies here for us in the drop down. We can select one and it'll pull those out for us. So that's how you would use that one. The other ones I want to go into is our additional fields that we can add for you to customize your options based on if you have an additional grants, funding streams that you need to add options for. This specific one, I was using our one client that I know that we have, a couple of them actually, they have a specific grant that they have to record the CSAP strategy for and are required to report out that way. If that is something that you want added here, we can actually add an additional drop down for you with those. So we're able to pull that data out as well when it comes to filtering out here based on the strategies. So I'll kind of show you guys that here in a second. And then the other thing we can do is we can also add a text box or kind of a typable box in here as an additional field as well. So if there's some type of information that you need to report for your grant, but it's more of like a text box, this group specifically here needed to track participants. After a participant came into their program, they got an ID and they needed to be able to track their participants back to the state. So they had to have some kind of way with non-identifying information to be able to track those people and how many events they came to, hours they participated in. So they went with a participant ID here that they're able to then, type a number in for each participant that came to the specific events they were recording. These bottom two are not required aspects for your coalition to submit data. So as you guys know, most if not all this information is required to submit a piece of information or a data output here. However, these last two are not required since they are just additional pieces that you may need on occasions, depending on what grant you're working on or funding source you're working for. That's why they're only, they're not required for you, but they are nice to have if you do need those. So now that we have our different or our extended options, I kind of like to say here, I went and tested out and added a couple entries for my coalition using those additional drop downs. So to pull those up now for filtering purposes, we click on our change view, and I'm going to pull up both the participant ID and the CSAP strategy. The other thing I'm going to pull up is going to be that who to report to funding kind of drop down there. This way I can specifically filter by which grant I used. So these were all foundation grants. This is who I need to report to. So I'm going to copy that, paste it here, and then I'm going to go ahead and click contains. So now it's also going to filter out only my entries that are for foundation grant. There might be additional, like some of these are for the federal grant and the foundation grant. Some were for only the foundation grant. That's okay. If it was for both, we still want to track it because it was still at least for the foundation grant that we are trying to report to and create our Excel and report for that grant today. Now, the nice thing here is, like I was saying, if we need to filter by something like a different strategy, you have your additional options here. We have information dissemination, which we know sounds a lot like providing information, but for the purpose of this client and this coalition, they wanted something specifically where they could track just their CSAP strategies. As much as they sound exactly like the other ones, they wanted these specifically for that purpose, so they could make sure to track those in the right area and then stuff wouldn't get lost in translation when trying to translate them from the 7 behavior change strategies to the CSAP strategies. So that's kind of why they wanted those there. It's completely up to your coalition how you want to use your additional fields here. Like I said, they used it for these two. You could do both text boxes. You could do both, drop downs to fill in. Whichever you want to do there, feel free. The other nice thing here is then we can filter by maybe participant ID. So if I need to know how much participant 003 participated with coalition activities, I can go ahead and type their number in here, click contains again, and now I'm only seeing the events that this participant was able to be there for. This will then give me their number of hours they participated. For this coalition, we're looking at just the month of December for their reporting period because they do it on a monthly basis. So we're going to go ahead and just look at that there. And now we know. Is there any confusion, any questions so far? Let me know if I'm moving too fast, guys, too. I don't want you guys to be confused. If you guys are interested in adding these 2 additional options here, whether it be for a different grant source you need to report to, maybe there's something new you want to start tracking for your coalition, let us know. As your evaluator, your scorer, here at ECS, we are here to add these for you. It is not something you can add yourself. It does have to be kind of approved, I guess, in a way, by someone here. We can't just be adding stuff all willy-nilly, because then come, later in down your coalition's life, I guess you would say, you might need those, and it's hard to adjust them once you've already had them there and been using them. So we do kind of like to tell people, use them sparingly, because there is only 2 currently. So don't just start tracking random stuff because you want to. We do usually say, try to save them for things that you need to track for, such as an additional funding stream or something like that. But they are nice if you did want to track something like a participant ID, even if you don't have or really need it. It might be nice to do, and that type of stuff. So that's going to be how we filter and using the filter options. Once we have, maybe what we want filtered out on the page, hopefully, if you do not know already, we have our awesome Export to Excel button. Use this, it'll be your friend, especially for grant reporting reasons, because once it's in an Excel file, it's a lot easier for you to copy and paste things sometimes, especially if you're trying to copy and paste something like the descriptions of maybe all 6 of these top entries. If you come over to Reach and you try to copy just the descriptions, you'll notice it tries to copy everything else. So the nice thing about the export function is it allows you to only copy something like the description, only copy something like the participant IDs, maybe the strategies, whatever it may be. It gives you a little bit more freedom to copy and paste things, read through it, section stuff off, move stuff around, and so on. That is my personal reason that I would use the Excel feature, just because Reach does everything else I need to. It will filter stuff. My main thing will be basically copy and pasting it to the report that I need to do. But as far as that goes, that's kind of my tips there. The last kind of part I wanted to talk about is really maybe showing you why you'd want to customize. So I'm going to pull up an actual example of a report that a client of ours has to fill out. Actually, I think there's a couple that have to fill out something similar to this. It could be an Excel. I've also seen clients who have to fill out kind of like a Word document with things along the same lines, having to report to basically strategies and what you've done. This one is specifically, like I said, a month period, a month reporting period. So this is how they have to report their data. The first thing you're going to notice in these bold square boxes here, these are those CSAP strategies that they wanted us to add to Reach for them for those reporting purposes. This makes it a lot easier on them to go ahead and come in here during reporting season and pull these up and be like, okay, I'm in my Reach. I can now pull up that additional filter section and filter by information dissemination. That will pull up everything I need to put in this section here for that specific grant. The only other thing I always recommend doing with your filtering is always make sure you put on that who to report to filter. Just in case by accident you might have accidentally recorded something as a federal grant and accidentally selected a CSAP strategy, we want to make sure we're not including it. So always make sure to have on that foundation grant or whatever grant you're reporting for, to make sure to kick out anything else you don't need that gets reported to another grant. Because the last thing we want is you double reporting something that doesn't need to be double reported. Obviously, sometimes we know that you do things that are, utilizing both grants, both funding streams, and it does need to be reported both places. Other times we know that there are things that, like, it was just the foundation grant. Maybe it was a medicine Dropbox. Whatever it was, we want to make sure that that's established first before we start doing any of this other filtering over here that we need to do. With that in mind, just kind of the other thing you're going to notice is a lot of times you're going to have to report, audience or attendees. This is where your services provided come in handy. Most of the time, the things you're going to be reporting here are either A, going to be services provided, or B, going to be your larger ticket items like your community changes, like your new policies, programs, procedures, or the work you're doing towards implementing those, which are going to be your community actions. That is typically what we tell our clients to focus on if they are doing some reportings for different grants, because that's a bulk of where your work comes from, right? As much as we need resources generated sometimes to show that match quality, which a lot of grants do need, it's great for that aspect, but resources generated aren't always going to tell us a lot about what we're doing. Our services provided they'll tell us what we're doing, who we're providing that service to, and how many people and how long we're serving them for. Our community changes obviously show us those big overall impacts that we're having in our community, so we want to make sure that we record those. Then we can't forget our actions, because our actions show the steps we had to take to get to that final change, right? So the nice thing about this as well is the system does obviously track attendees for things, so you don't have to worry about adding that up or finding all your papers for the number of attendees or people who signed in for an event. You should already have that in Reach, so it should be super easy to just type in here. The descriptions, like I said, easy copy and paste. That's why that export to Excel button is super nice, because once you get everything filtered out that you need, you can simply export it to an Excel, copy it from that sheet, right to the other. So easy, not super complicated. And then obviously you have location activities. Some of these things might be a bit difficult to find based on how your description is wrote. Some coalitions, some clients I know are super good at writing down, we had a drug take back event at blah, blah, blah pharmacy. That's easy for you to know that that location was in, this city or this town, or it just needs to be countywide. You could just put county here, your county name here. It really depends on what type of grant you're reporting to and how they require you give them that information. This one, for this client, they needed to report their performance target in some of these different areas of things they wanted to accomplish in the year or things they wanted to do in the year. So they wanted to have 3 after proms. Maybe they have 3 different schools. Year to date, they have had 0. So that's why their achievement percentage is only at 0 for that one. Some of these other ones are a bit higher. They're kind of on their way to their total. But this is going to be very helpful for you guys as well to fill in, because you can simply filter out for these words in your descriptions and then put on the services provided filter, typically, or that community change option to know how many of these you have done. It does require a little bit of nuance. Sometimes you'll notice you might have to do some reading through some of your descriptions to really be able to pull out the ones you actually need to be recording. But it is going to be very helpful in terms of filtering in the Reach system once we have some different options here for you to filter by. That is kind of the basics of how you would be using your filtering options. The nice thing, like I said, Reach does allow you to customize. Some other systems out there, they do not. It's very kind of one funding stream guided, and you can only track for that one funding stream. You might have to have a completely separate account for that other funding stream. Reach is very collaborative in that way that we want you to be able to track anything and everything you're doing, because we encourage you to have multiple funding streams. It's good. It means you have, diversity. You have that ability to sustain, hopefully, in the future. So we want to make sure we can do that, and that's where our customizable options come in. There's also applicable filtering capabilities to be able to sort out data by funding stream. I showed you guys that. That's the big one that a lot of our clients use. When you have multiple funding streams, just being able to only look at my DFC stuff, super nice. Maybe I only want to look at my CARA grant stuff, super nice. Maybe I have a state grant, block grant, whatever. I want to be able to just look at that data sometimes. That's the best filter for that one. And like I said, the real-time exporting capabilities to an Excel file is going to be super handy when it comes to writing those descriptions, those activities, because then you won't have to copy, type, whatever. You'll have to just basically do the Excel export and just copy and paste right over. Easy enough for you, right? Saves time, and time is money, we all know. With that, is there any other questions you guys have today on kind of the filtering aspects for your data reporting? I know this is a lot like our filtering and sorting webinar, but I wanted to be able to show the customizable options a bit more and how you'd want to do it for a specific grant. All right, I'm not seeing any questions come in. So with that, guys, thank you for coming today. The last thing I want to leave you with is if you have any questions at all, If this is something that you know you have multiple funding streams and you know this will make your life a lot easier and you want to have more of a one-on-one session with one of us here at ECS, whether it's Kelly, myself, any of our other scorers here, let us know. We would be more than willing to walk through this with you, especially if there's a new grant that you have that you want to start reporting for and you're not quite sure if you need to add some of those customizable fields. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's totally something you can have a conversation with us about if you need to. So feel free, don't be shy. Let us know, hey, I have questions. Hey, this might be something I'm interested in. Can we have more of a one-on-one session? Because then we can customize it a little bit more to your specific needs, depending on your funding streams. So just let us know. With that, guys, that is the end of our training today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. Feel free to shoot me an email. You can also email us at info@epiphanycommunityservices.com. My email is obviously just jessica@epiphanycommunityservices.com. And hopefully you guys know our phone number. So if you do need to reach us, feel free to call. But thank you guys for joining and have a great rest of your day.